I can't speak from the human rights international legal perspective, but I think that in thinking about human rights, what we're usually thinking about is how we define the object of a human right is by some conception of what are fundamental human interests that stand in need of urgent protection. Now, it's likely that those interests will be plural in nature, so some of them may refer to certain types of capabilities, functionings that we have as biological beings. Some also have to do with more specific features of human beings, such as our need to have certain type of opportunities for creative expression and other types of basic things. So I would be tempted to think that all human rights are in some sense oriented towards protecting these fundamental interests. None are necessarily subsumable or necessary or sufficient to bring about others, and all should be conceived as directed towards this package. Now, of course, there's a lot of, it's all in the details about how exactly you understand what these fundamental interests are, how they're weighed against one another, because they will be plural, I think. I mean, unless you're utilitarian and think that the fundamental interest is just being happy, you're probably going to have a broad range of types of capabilities and functionings that you want to protect. And you'll need, and I tend to think of international human rights as legal rights. You might be able to protect these interests without them, but they've proved very useful as means of protecting these interests and holding agents accountable for making sure that they're satisfied.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, and just wanted to reflect on the fact that sort of historically, human rights in the sort of original conception were agreed as interdependent, indivisible, and interlinked. So really it was for political reasons that you ended up with this split between what are now seen as civil and political rights and economic, social, and cultural rights. And I think we're sort of coming back to the point where we really appreciate the indivisibility of these rights, and the fact that you can't look at the right to health in isolation from other rights. They're truly interdependent. And also looking at the components of the right to health itself. It's not just a right to access health care, it's also the right to the underlying determinants of health and the sort of social and economic inequalities that drive health, like food, water, education, and so on. And I think gender inequities are, again, the example that I was talking about earlier with maternal mortality really drives this home. So for me, they're very, very much linked.